Hello and welcome to Dedicated Dentist 32 Reasons Why. This is Faryal Fatima Hashmi. Make sure you share, like, and subscribe. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. So today's presentation is about methods of gaining space in orthodontics. We require space to correct the crowding, arch length tooth material discrepancy, to cause the derotation of a tooth, to correct the steep curve of SME, and also to get a favorable overjet and overbite. And also when the teeth are bulky in the posterior or buccal segment, there is a proclination of anteriors. So to correct that also, procline anteriors, we do these methods to gain space. These are proximal stripping, distalization of molars. We also study the appliances, expansion, extraction, uprighting, derotation, and proclination. So proximal stripping is also called as slenderization, reproximation, disking, proximal stripping. Now when do we do the proximal stripping is we do a arch perimeter analysis, and there's when the space required is less than 2.5 mm or 2.5 mm, and then we go for proximal stripping. Then we do a Bolton's analysis, which is used for the calculation of that inter-arch tooth material discrepancy. That is, we see the tooth material access in maxilla and mandible, and if the tooth material is access in either of the arches, we do proximal stripping in that particular arch. So Bolton's analysis is for the inter-arch tooth material discrepancy. Now it is important for us to take a periapical radiograph before we do the proximal stripping, because we can get a rough idea of the thickness of the enamel and thus prevent accidental exposure of pulp. By definition, it's a method by which proximal surfaces of the teeth are sliced in order to reduce the mesiodistal width of a teeth. Like I said, when there is arch length and tooth material discrepancy, that is, arch length is really small as compared to the teeth, and the teeth, they are very bulky and have excess of tooth material on them. So indications: when the space required is 2.5 mm or more. When the space required is 2.5 mm or less than that. If the space required is more than 2.5 mm, then we extract the premolars. So it is usually done in the lower anterior region, but we also do that in the buccal segments of the lower and upper arch. Now suppose the individual tooth sizes, some particular unit of tooth, they are very bulky, and thus that is preventing an ideal relation of class 1 molar and canine. Then also we do proximal stripping in those teeth to get an ideal relationship. Then we obtain a overjet and overbite, mild in cases of mild overjet and overbite. So the overjet is when the maxillary anteriors, they are too much proclined, too much far away, and overbite is when the maxillary anteriors, they are overlapping the lower anteriors. So we get a favorable overjet and overbite with the proximal stripping. Remember, we do proximal stripping for the milder cases. So milder is the word. Now these are some contraindications, like we don't do that in young patients, since we may end up exposing the pulp, since the pulp chambers in the young patients, it is very large. So in patients who have poor oral hygiene, high caries and plaque index, and in patients who have enamel hypoplasia, that's a developmental defect. In them, the already enamel is really thin and demineralized, so we don't do proximal stripping in such cases. And in patients who have dentine hypersensitivity, so if we do proximal stripping in such patients, we may alleviate the problem, because dentine is just the underlying enamel, and any stimuli may cause sensitivity. So these are the armamentarium. Above picture, we see abrasive strips, and in the lower one, a carborundum disc. We also use taper fissure burrs. That's the procedure we have to plan out. We have to take a radiograph, plan things perfectly, the surfaces that we need to slice, and the distribution of teeth should be done accordingly, according to the space required. Then we have to assess the interproximal areas. We use separators. Now it is we cannot do proximal stripping in the teeth which are highly rotated, because then we don't get access to that interproximal area, and we may not do the stripping properly. So we don't do this in highly rotated teeth. So we we first gain some space in the highly rotated tooth, and then we do proximal stripping in them. Now we assess the interproximal areas with the help of separators. Just like we use wedges during restoration, same way we use separators to separate teeth and gain access to the interproximal area. So we can see the interproximal area. Then we do the interproximal enamel removal. We use strips, diamond discs, or tip of Fisher burrs. Now after doing the stripping, we use a polish. We have to polish the surfaces. We use soften the surfaces and edges with fine strips, because rough surface, they attract the plaque. Then we have to give a topical fluoride after doing proximal stripping for the remineralization. So we do about 0.25 mm of stripping on one surface of an anterior tooth and 0.4 mm on one surface of a posterior tooth. Not more than 0.5 mm. 0.25 mm on one surface of anterior, 0.4 mm on one surface of posterior tooth. So you see, we do proximal stripping between these two teeth. 0.25 plus 0.25, we get 0.5 mm. Likewise, 2, 3, 4, 5. 0.5 into 5 contact areas, we get 2.5 mm of space in the anteriors. Now in the posterior area, again two surfaces, 0.4 plus 0.4, 0.8. 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 contact areas. So it is 0.8 into 8. We get 6.4 mm. So when we sum this up, that is 2.5 mm plus 6.4 mm, we get about 8.9 mm of space. So this is when we reduce 50% of interproximal enamel, we get about 8.9 mm of space. So thus by interproximal stripping, we can correct a crowding of about 4 to 6 mm or even 4 to 8 mm. Now the advantages are that in borderline cases, we can avoid doing extraction. So as everything has its pros and cons, so does extraction. So we can avoid extraction and just do proximal stripping in the borderline cases. Then we can obtain a favorable overjet and overbite, and we can broaden the contact area. So there's no rotation. You can see here, before doing proximal stripping, we had a contact point. We have a contact point between two teeth. In posterior, it is present between the occlusal surface and middle third. So when we do proximal stripping, we broaden that area. Thus we get a contact area. So because of these contact point, there are chances that the tooth gets rotated because it is small and pinpoint. If the contact point is really small and pinpoint, the tooth, it gets rotated. Now when we do proximal stripping, we broaden this area. So contact point changes into a contact area. So this broadens up, so there's no rotation. So this is the advantage of that. But because of contact point, there is no food impaction taking place. But when we do proximal stripping, we broaden the contact point into contact area, and thus food impaction takes place. Now these are the disadvantages, that it produces a rough surface, and a rough surface, it attracts a plaque. So also there is increased caries susceptibility in such patients, increased teeth sensitivity, and if done improperly, it can alter the tooth morphology and give very unnatural appearance to the teeth. Now next we'll talk about the distalization of molars. We can do distalization in class 2 cases, in moderate protrusion, when there is a moderate protrusion, moderate arch length and tooth material discrepancy, and if suppose extraction is not indicated, then we can carry out distalization and create space. And if we cannot do mesial movement in the mandible, then we can do the maxillary distalization. We cannot take the teeth mesially in mandible. We cannot do the mesial movement in mandible, so we do maxillary distalization. That is, take the maxillary molars distal and create space. So you can see in the above picture, this is a class 2. The mesiobuccal cusp is fitting into the embrasure. The mesiobuccal cusp, it is fitting into this embrasure. This embrasure is the area. This is present between the second premolar and the mandibular first molar. Ideally, this mesiobuccal cusp, this should fit into the mesiobuccal groove to get a class 1 relationship. Hence, to correct this, we will take this first molar distally, so that we get a ideal relationship. That is, this mesiobuccal cusp will fit into the mesiobuccal groove, but this should be done again prior to the eruption of second molar. Hence, it won't be possible for us to move the first molar distally. So this should be done prior to the eruption of second molar.